Australian Rally Championships, brought to you by Global Star. Mobile everywhere, keeping rally mobile everywhere you go. Shannon's Insurance, special insurance for motoring enthusiasts by motoring enthusiasts. Pedder's 28-point steering and suspension safety check. And Michelin, our pursuit of victory is relentless. At Michelin, we never stop racing.
We're in the Hyatt Regency in Perth for our second V8 Superstars for 2004. Welcome to the program. We have a lot to talk about. There have been 3 rounds since our previous V8 Superstars show, 9 races, all sprints, and a lot of biff and barge. And there's been a lot happening off the paddock as well, so we'll talk about all that in just a moment. Welcome to our studio audience here at the Hyatt Regency. You're a wonderful and very handsome group of people. Thanks for coming. And thank you too for helping out the Variety Club of Australia, because that's one of the big reasons we're here tonight. Also, I'd like to welcome our regular panel members. They've been here for a while and they still haven't made 1 ounce of sense, but we're still trying. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Holden Racing team, Mark Scaife. Thank you. From Aussie Mail Racing, Bradley Jones. From Stone Brothers Racing, Russell Ingle. And from Kmart Racing, Gregory Murphy. Now, there's a wide spread of topics tonight, so we're going to introduce a couple of very heavy-hitting panel members as our special guests. I'm talking about team bosses, Gary Rogers from Gary Rogers Motorsport and Roland Dane from 888 Racing. Give them a big round of applause. It's Roland's first appearance on the panel. He's in for a big night. And also our extra drivers tonight, Jason Bargwanna from Orcon Racing. Give him a big welcome. And the man who's had quite a weekend here in Perth, the former championship leader, but he's still in there punching away. Stephen Richards from Castell Perkins Racing. And patrolling the audience tonight, gathering some thoughts and opinions and observations, we have not only Greg Rust, our regular wanderer, but Mark Mad Aston will be joining us as well. So please give them a big welcome. All right, I mentioned it's been a very, very busy period. A lot of races and a lot of bumping and grinding in this championship. And we'll start with the man who was expected to do so well in New Zealand. And in fact, he did, even though he didn't quite manage to make it 4 victories there in a row. Greg Murphy, it's been an extraordinary period in the championship. A lot of people said a few years ago we should stick with these 300-kilometre pit stop races because they were much more interesting than the boring old sprint races. But gee, the sprint races have been fantastic.
Yeah, I really been enjoying them. I mean, the pit stops have been there. Obviously, New Zealand was a bit different because of the weather, and they had the 3 races on the Sunday, which didn't have the pit stops. But you know, the 100k races are pretty entertaining. You get to have the 3 starts. And also you've got that opportunity, obviously, that if you have a bad race, I mean, Richo proved that on the weekend, you know, you have a bad one, come from the back, and you still manage to get some points. Whereas when it's one race, it's all over in one fell swoop, and you sit on the sidelines for the rest of the weekend. So there's a lot of work to do building up to the race, and then when you're out on the 2nd or 3rd lap, it's a pretty hard time. Oh, thanks.
This is an incident from the most recent round, of course.
That's not on the sheet here. That is not on the sheet.
No, we just kind of threw that in, Murphy,
thanks,
as a bit
Scott,
of an icebreaker.
Yeah, good on you.
What was going through your mind there, by the way?
Listen,
the boot lid.
As someone said before, actually unusual from... Oh, let's see it again.
My theory is that there was so much congestion in the first round of pit stops, you thought you'd back the car in to make it a bit easier for the crew.
No, actually, I hadn't done a really good job on the VB challenge, and I thought, I'll just come in and see if I can do a bit
I just
better
wonder
job.
what Garth Tander was thinking when he went past you. He must have thought he was going the wrong way.
I reckon I reckon he was laughing his head off, actually. It wouldn't be funny if I'd sort of go, hey, boys, I'm coming.
It was very close to blocked, wasn't it? Because when you went like that, Ambrose and I snuck by the back, but there was only just a car width.
Oh, you know, I knew what I was doing.
Perfect, yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Timed it right. Gave you guys enough room. You should be thankful.
Could have been ugly. What do you mean could have been ugly? What do you mean could have been?
I thought it was particularly ugly, actually. But anyway.
Well, let's take a few steps back now to the Northern Territory and a particular incident in race 1 between one M. Scaife and one M. Ambrose. This was pretty typical of the aggression we've seen in the last 3 rounds that I was talking about at the top of the show. And talk us through this, Scaife. I think it's fair to say you didn't quite expect this.
I wouldn't have thought that if you were leading the championship or whatever, Bill, that you probably needed to pull that move on at the last corner to definitely, from here, you got to make a car length and a half up to get up the inside. You know you're going to make contact, and I didn't expect him to have a dive there. Obviously he did, and that's the end of it.
Stephen Richards, in terms of your championship defence in the last couple of rounds, you talked about risk management. What's your opinion on that kind of move in that situation? Marcus was racing for 2 points there.
Yeah, look, you know, from my perspective, there's no way that I would have tried that. But in saying that too, I think Marcus actually pulled up at the end of the straight after that race and couldn't continue for the rest of the lap. So it was a big risk on his part to make that move. And you know, okay, left it to the last lap, but you know, you got to sort of take these things on when you're in that position in the championship. You're not just driving for yourself as a driver, you're driving for the 30 other guys in your team, and they work equally as hard to get that result as what you do. So
now, Richo, on that subject. You guys, you knew you were going to be on the panel together, and you're actually leaning towards each other to have a little chat here, and it just didn't work out, did it?
no, it didn't. It wasn't one of my happier moments.
Richo, what are you going to say on the panel on Monday? Not sure, mate.
Here's something to talk about.
Whoops.
Hasn't Scaife been in both of these so far?
There is a common thread here.
Thanks, Jacques. Yeah, thank you.
That's a pretty hard one. I wouldn't actually want to be making a decision.
Yeah,
on
look,
that.
it looked a lot more cut and dry from where I was sitting at the time. But when you see it on the TV, you have to say that.
What do you think happened?
I thought that Scaife moved over on me. Oh. That's what I thought. And I'm sure that our team guys' radios were bleating to expletives.
I thought you were both very civilised back in pit lane when you were chatting about it.
Good on sight.
We can all laugh about it now.
What does the other... Look, what's this? Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. What does the other side of the panel think about that?
It's always very easy to look at these things in slow motion and, in frame by frame, but obviously doing 200 plus kilometres an hour, it's hard to sort of pinpoint exactly what happened where it didn't happen. So 3 cars wides, sometimes it always ends ugly.
Well, the stewards had all the angles and at the end of the day decided not to take action, and they did not take action on another incident which involved a group of cars in the Northern Territory. Let's have a look at this one where a couple of teammates happened to come together on this occasion.
Yeah.
This is the charge to the first corner.
Yeah,
Russell was...
What did Ross have to say?
What did you say then, Russ, when you were spinning?
Oh my God!
Yeah, well, to be honest, Marcus would be the last one I expect to get a bit of a nudge from, and he said that Bridie gave him a bit of a tap up the backside. I guess not.
Yeah, that wouldn't be Bridie there. Would
That'll
it?
be Bridie on the outside, wouldn't it?
Jeez,
I'll tell you what.
Hey, Russ, mate, lucky you were there because he would have ended up in the go-kart track.
On the upside, it was a very stylish spin, I thought.
It was nice.
Full 360. It was very nice. Very nicely executed.
I'm just surprised how cool, calm and collected you are about that little incident, actually. You haven't got anything to say about it at all?
Well, you know, the worst thing, had the window down.
No, have you got anything to say about it?
And all the dirt flew inside.
Russell.
Russell, you hate getting your car dirty,
I recall a little incident only 7 months ago that there was a bit said about that. And nothing like that for this one, no?
Oh, what can you say? What can you say?
I don't know. You've said plenty before.
Mate, accidents happen.
Accidents happen.
And
Jeez, you are getting old and bloody senile and
But Russell, what about your mate at the driver's briefing? Murph had his hand up 25 times trying to get the stewards to explain what had happened there. You didn't put your hand up and say, yeah, you didn't go with him. He was looking after you. What happened there?
It's called...
Oh, you were sitting next to Marcus.
It's actually called...
You were sitting next to Marcus.
It's actually called I Like My Job.
Oh, right.
Well, has he become the Rubens Barrichello of the V8 Supercar Championship? That's the big question. Now, we've got a couple of team bosses at the end here who have been very, very quiet. There's panel damage involved here. There's cost and all other kinds of anxieties. Points lost. What are your views on this? It seems to me that the other common thread with those three incidents, by the way, is that they were all left untouched by the stewards.
For me, there was only one incident there that was unacceptable in that it wasn't punished, and that was the one at Darwin. The other two were sort of the sort of incidents that can happen, and we don't want to stop people racing each other. And the one that where Marcus took out Russell at the first corner was, I thought that was the sort of incident where you actually had to do a drive-through. So I have to say, from my perspective, I was a little bit surprised at that one, but the other two, these things can happen.
Gary Rogers?
Yeah, I think what Stephen said is pretty right, Bill. I mean, if you watch the replays, you change it time and time again. I don't think anyone deliberately, or very few people deliberately, steam in there wanting to cause havoc. And but the slow motion replays are much easier to decide how it happened. But when everyone's charging in there at 200 kilometres an hour, you don't stop as easy as you do on a replay at 50 kilometres an hour. So I think you've just got to bear some of it and try and avoid it where you can. But you can't, you can't
You've got
compromise
splinters. Gary, you've got splinters after sitting on the fence that bad with that one. Hey, that's the only time I've never heard you say that's dead set right or wrong.
Well, I don't think any of those, I wouldn't have pinged anyone, not even the first one, because like from the start line to that first corner at Darwin, you're fairly motoring by the time you get there. And as I said before, if you want to stop from 100 kilometres an hour, it's a sight easier than from, say, 200.
Yeah, but
everyone else jumps on the brakes,
well, but everyone else wasn't stopping, were they? I mean, eventually they're all compacted and they're all banging.
He was still going.
Well, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue this topic because we'll have to talk about just what direction the stewards are taking, what direction the sport is taking. Is it worth it for the entertainment that the people in this audience and you at home are enjoying at the moment? We'll be back. With V8 Superstars, we're talking about the way this championship is being run at the moment in terms of infringements or non-infringements. Just what is going on in the drivers' briefings, gentlemen? What is being said to you about these incidents and why they haven't been penalised and punished?
Over to you, Brad.
Pick it up with Murph.
Is anyone game enough to speak?
Pick it up with Murph. Go, Murph.
Listen, I mean, everyone is talking about a few things, and particularly I think it was the issue on the drivers' minds did have a lot to do with the Darwin incident. There was a few other ones, obviously the one with Scafie and Marcus. Everyone looked at that and was like, well, it's hard to tell. Mark had his opinion of it, and Marcus had his one as well, obviously, and that's a tough one. But I think the one that did stand out was Russell's and Marcus's one, and everyone sort of wanted to understand how the decision came about that there was no penalty to be given, and it was brought up at the drivers' briefing, and little more was said about it actually. So we're still. the stewards have obviously looked at all this stuff and said that they didn't think that they could apportion a blame solely on one person, and decided that they wouldn't do anything more about it. And there's been a lot of incidents this year that seem to have probably been overlooked, or not overlooked, but they've looked into it and decided not to give a penalty. And if that's the case, well then maybe there is some consistency starting to happen, and it might mean that the racing is going to get a little bit tougher.
Well, remember there was a directive from Avesco at the beginning of the year. Remember Wayne Caddick from Avesco sat down at the beginning in Adelaide and addressed all the drivers after the drivers' briefing, saying that they were going to allow a lot more racing, inverted commas, going on. They're going to allow a lot more panel rubbing up to a certain point. And to be fair, like, Cam's only administer the rules that are handed down from Avesco.
Are you defending Cam?
Kidding, aren't you? Okay,
they've got the Russell Ingall wing at Cam, haven't they?
I'm not going to defend the stewards, but the thing is, they've been told to let the rope out a bit, and they've absolutely done that. But there is obviously circumstances which probably.
I don't think any of us have got a problem.
But if it is. Was that Brad?
No, it's Russell.
No, but you were involved in that, weren't you?
Hey, speaking of common denominators, check this out. Hang on.
Only just.
We must be able to see that again. There seems to be.
You're going to get a bill for that VB.
He was at the B pill. Look at the mark.
Exactly right.
Here we go. Brad Jones.
Yeah.
Glenn Seaton.
Poor Glenn Seaton.
Poor Glenn Seaton, look at him hit me.
Hey, Rusty.
Boom. That's right.
Russell, you're in danger. You're in danger of losing the whole enforcer thing after that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Brad the enforcer Jones.
He could have lost an eye. Yeah, I know. It's dangerous business.
We're fighting for 15th place.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a dog out there.
Should the stewards have looked at that?
Brad defends 15th place like it's the last lap of Bathurst in the league. I can't believe it. Like, it's like,
It's been a very tough year.
Can we just be serious for a second? Because when you brought that up at the stewards briefing, and the guys were talking about it, really, they didn't want to talk about it. So Tim Shankin said it was a first corner incident, the Marcus and Russell one, and that was basically the excuse that nothing had been looked into any further because first corners are okay. Now, to me, that sets a really dangerous precedence, because as soon as you say anything can go on at the first corner, then we all put our Russell Ingall hat on and we all arrow into the first corner.
This incident.
Oh, sorry, yes.
It's now the Marcus Ambrose.
This was in the
that's right.
This was pretty close to the last corner. Actually, it was very late in the race, and Bargs, you swept past there at that stage with your teammate. What was your? And then you probably didn't see that, Bargs, but you're too busy getting on with the job.
Was that Paul Dumbrell?
From this angle.
That was Paul having a bit of bother here.
bit of speedway.
Man, check this bit out though. Watch Ellery.
Watch Ellery.
That was straight out of the advanced driving course.
What's this? It's like going to Parramatta. It's like being at Parramatta Speedway.
I hope they bring spare Optimax signs to the races, do they?
Incidents. It is a lot harder to define when there's 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 cars together than when there's just 2 cars in an incident.
Yeah, but they have the ability, they have it on tape, and the problem that we as a group have, the drivers, is there's not enough communication to us about what's acceptable and what's not. And we understand that it's different at every corner, and every circumstance is different. That's been explained to us. But the bottom line is, when you go into the first corner, everyone jumps on the brakes, and one bloke doesn't, and he has an accident. We just don't know where we stand, and it's not explained to us, and no one takes the time in those meetings to go, okay, we came to this conclusion for this reason. And the excuse we get, which is, well, it's the first corner, it's all a bit touchy-feely and bumpy and grindy, that's not good enough.
Well, should be free for all racing. No stewards, race last man standings and winner.
We're into that. Absolutely. We're into that. No problem.
You're just complaining about drivers and how much they get paid and all this rubbish, and you're going to destroy all your cars.
You get it deducted from your wages to pay for the repairs, right?
Okay, well, we're into it. We're into it.
Start with $500,000 every time you crash your car. A little bit comes off. At the end of the year, you'll owe me plenty.
Let's have a look at the pit lane chaos here. I don't know about... Well, there was a penalty arising from this, in fact, and it wasn't anything to do with biffing and barging. It was actually Mark Skaife's pace.
And see, I got through pit lane that time.
Very good, Murph.
Yeah.
And watch Garth clean up my wheel here. Oh, there it goes.
He was in the way.
The wheel was in the way. What do you expect?
If he had it backed it in, it probably would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
It just added 3 seconds to my stop.
Watch this next part here. When
Watch Russell just park his car in the perfect spot. Watch this. Here we go. Ah! Just park her up. That's the one. Ah! Yeah!
What's wrong with that?
Let's wait for half the field to get out.
I was waiting for Murph to come out.
I mean, bearing in mind, not only did Murph get out, but he held everyone up, and Marcus got out second. Perfect teammate. You're going to have to come and drive for me.
But replay it. Scotty, can you replay that? Because when you replay that...
Murphy went, you go. And I said, no, you go.
But when you replay that...
Here we go. Let's look at it again.
Let's not get me on the rev limiter about the first part, but the last part...
when he's speeding on the way in, you can see it from this shot.
Yeah. That's why Jason Bright called it, that's right. But the great part is, when you look at the front part...
There's a guy's kneecap.
Yeah. When you look at the front bit, when all that kerfuffle happens created by Russell, Garth Tander sneaks by Jason Bright. It's just unbelievable.
And Jason's hard into your backside at that stage.
Here we go.
He crashes into you.
Crash straight to the back of you. Oh. And watch this, as it moves, now watch Tander get past.
There he goes.
There we go, Tander sneaks by. That's the move of the year. I reckon there was only half a car width there.
Don't you reckon this pit lane thing's getting a bit of a chaos though? Like,
yeah, but hang on, that pit lane's the smallest that we have, and when you consider that, it wasn't such a bad effort all weekend.
Yeah,
well, no one got maimed.
What they need to do...
Are you standing out there changing wheels, Gary?
I am.
What about you guys?
Here's a drive-through penalty here from Mark.
We should have had the in-car camera.
You wouldn't be shaking your head in this. Oh, there you go.
What were you saying,
I've
Scobie?
seen some Murphy shots, but his mouth's usually moving when they show those ones.
Yeah.
What they need to do in that situation, though, is we need to now not have the pit window open when the safety car
With the window
situation like that. So you can't start a race, get a safety car on lap 1, and have everyone firing a pit lane. We have to have a place where we do at least 2 or 3 green laps after the safety car pulls off, so at least it's safer for the guys.
Bugs, you are an ideas man.
But I tell you,
that is a bloody good idea.
Where'd you get that one from, I wonder?
I mean, you can't afford
Straight to the trophy room.
Two cars. I mean, all the 2-car teams, they all bought in both their cars, and that's caused congestion. Because what are you going to? You can't stay out. You've got. I mean, it's better off taking the risk, losing a few seconds. I lost 2 spots in that stop because I had to wait for Rick, and you know, you lost a couple as well. And
no, he made a heap.
You know what made me laugh? Everybody has a gentleman's agreement where you stop at the beside the car of the team before. So you wait till you finish your stop. So for me, it was park next to Garth while Garth did his stop, and then Garth gets out, JB goes out, and I go in.
Gentlemen.
I noticed Russell goes clunk and stops right behind Marcus.
There you go.
Very clear. Okay, every man for himself. Do me as soon as I'm ready. I don't want to lose that split second.
I must have been at that meeting where that agreement took place.
he's probably going to pull into your pit next. Hey, just put this. Come on, I got to go.
Anyway, well, where is this gladiatorial sport heading geographically? Are the fans in Dubai going to enjoy this kind of action? We'll address that question and a few others. Are the fans in the streets of Perth going to enjoy it? We'll see. Well, this championship is constantly looking for new worlds to conquer. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but we've already been to WA. But should we go to Barbagallo or should we go to a street race in Perth? It's been mooted in the last few months and they are discussing it. Let's see Mark Aston's view of this situation.
To street circuit or not to street circuit? That's the question here in Perth. When you talk street circuits, the Clipsal 500 in Adelaide is a winner. It's close to the city, well patronised, and has a wonderful atmosphere. And now Perth could be heading in the same direction. Avesco is proposing a Perth street circuit to be built on the southern side of the city, flanked by the Swan River and the CBD. The track would feature landmarks such as the famous Bell Tower and the Governor's residence.
Oh, there's certainly space problems getting up to Barbagallo. Traffic's a bit of a nightmare. It's a fair way to go out. So, yeah, I think it would be a good move, great move into the city.
It's like easy to get to and like you don't have to like pay to get in or anything.
Well, I think you'd still have to pay to get in.
I suppose, but
I think it helped the local business and something different to attract people to the area.
Let's continue to ask people of Perth what they think about a street circuit. Reverend Ken Williams, what do you think?
Well, I'm a great fan of motorsport, and I'd love to see motorsport come to church on Sunday.
That's perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend. That's exactly what I needed you to say.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Is that off now?
Yeah, the camera's off, yep.
Yeah. Russell Engel, is he still racing?
Yep.
Still causing trouble on the track?
Yeah, he's still a bit of a problem, to be honest. The race would start right here on Terrace Road and head east toward Hill Street. This is how Network 10 commentator Bill Woods would call the start of a race around the streets of Perth.
And they're away for the very first V8 Supercar Championship round in the streets of Perth. Marcus Ambrose is beating Scape into the first corner after being out-qualified this weekend. It's a great battle.
And this is how Roberta Osborne, a 65-year-old grandmother from Kwinana, would call the action.
And away they go for round 7 of the V8 Supercar Series in Perth. And Russell Ingall was first out. Marcus Ambrose in his Pertec Ford has a blinder of a start. And the cars thunder up the home straight.
Would you like to see a street circuit here in Perth?
Yeah.
Why?
No, actually, no, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, bring extra people into the city, yeah.
Dalton, what do you think?
I think it should be pretty good.
Jason?
Yep, same as what Don said, yeah, it should be great, yep.
I reckon the benefits would be good for the cafes and that, more people coming in, more business, more money.
So it seems there's a strong feeling in favour of a street circuit right here in Perth. And who knows, it may come to fruition sooner rather than later.
What do you think, Russell Ingall, after you've been struck by lightning?
Yeah. Well, where'd that come from?
Well, I think you might be in trouble with the man upstairs.
Oh, yeah. Actually, did you hear what he said afterwards? Like he said, am I still racing? Is he still being a naughty boy?
Yes.
That's the bit we're talking about.
He's not the Messiah, he's just a naughty boy.
Geez, you're quick. That's what we were talking about.
Oh, Father.
You're right there, mate.
You have seen three confessions, mate. You've got to go back again.
I know. Mate, street race in Auckland, how awesome.
Auckland?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, let's take this. We'll get on to that in a minute. What about a street race in Perth?
You were talking about those
Let's have
two
a street
kids going
race
for
in
nothing.
Perth. Come on. Nah, street race in Perth would be awesome. Like anyone that probably hasn't been to Adelaide that isn't for it probably hasn't seen the Adelaide Street Race. Like, I mean, it's such a good thing, and after seeing the enthusiastic crowd that was out there on the weekend, you'd easily double that. Like, you'd get over 100, 150,000. And the good thing about a street race is you start bringing in people from interstate as well. You start bringing in tourists into the place because accommodation's easy to get to. You don't need transport because you can stay in town. It's just a fantastic thing, and there's no reason now they've spent the money at Barbagallo, why not have two races in WA? I mean, what's that?
Is this isn't an election year or anything, is it? That's what you and Peter Garrett have just joined the Labor Party.
No, but think about this. Why not? I know these two team owners are going, oh, dollars, trip all the way over here. But hang on, why not?
Give us some diesel from your Caltex card.
No, hang on. I've had a brainwave.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
I bet it's one weekend after another, is it? Oh, yeah, I know.
You got it.
How did I see that one coming?
Consecutive weekends.
Yeah.
Why not consecutive weekends? Hey, remember we used to go from Adelaide to Perth? Yeah. Remember we used to do that run? We used to go to Madalar over to Perth. Why not have consecutive weekends over here? I mean, they spent all that money at Barbagallo. It's a great track, really good racing on the weekend. Why not?
I've got to say, actually, the surface is fantastic out there. There's a lot of people that were saying that it would have been better to leave it the way it was and the racing wouldn't be nearly as good, but the service is great. The cars are going as fast or faster at the end of the race than they were at the start, and I thought they've done a fantastic job. It's smooth, it's fast, it's really, really good. And it's true. I think the surface has worked out to be a really good thing for Barbagallo.
So
well said, Brad. You didn't do anything about Russell's two weekends in a row.
Put it this way, I'd rather have two races here on two good tracks and drop some of the
Which one would you
places
drop?
that we go to. You know which one
Gary,
we
what?
Oh, don't tell
You
me
know which one
Winton.
I drop.
Don't tell me Winton.
Gary Rogers, what about the facilities at Barbagallo compared to what might be provided for a street race? Is it satisfactory for you as a team owner?
Oh, look, they've done a fantastic job out there, but I do think a street race would be much better because, as Russell said, you'll get the crowd. But when the initial discussions took place with, or was bandied around a couple of years ago, it was agreed that the club at Barbagallo would be involved in the whole procedure so they wouldn't be disadvantaged. Because clearly you need circuits, you just can't have a whole lot of road races and no circuits left. And it was always agreed that if it were to proceed, it would encompass the club. There would be funding from the event to the club so as the circuit could be kept here and other races would be held here. But there's no doubt the street races are exactly what Russell said. You get the people that would never normally go to the races turn up, their families, they really have a good time. And I think it'd be a real big thing for Western Australia.
Roland Dane, your team has, of course, a wonderful pedigree that goes back to the top-level racing in Europe. What do you think about the balance of street races as opposed to circuit racing in Australia?
Yeah, you've got to be very careful. What Gary just said about not allowing the permanent race circuits to suffer, because that's what you need for the club racer every day. But having said that, Adelaide is one of the most fantastic events I've ever been to anywhere in the world. Indy's very good as well. So if you could recreate that here, I think you'd be onto another winner.
Let's talk about Auckland on that subject and whether there should be a street race as opposed to a circuit race at Pukekohe. Greg Murphy, it's your backyard.
Well, I think the same problem that the guys have just discussed is an issue there as well. Obviously, Pukekohe will suffer if Auckland Street Race goes ahead, and the facility there is lacking seriously, and the money hasn't been forthcoming to upgrade that. But for New Zealand, having one V8 race, there's no doubt that a street race, and particularly in Auckland because of the population base and also availability of accommodation and everything like that, is the place to have it. And it's looking really, really good that potentially will happen. And I mean, that will just be that will singly be the biggest sporting event in New Zealand by far, because we get, I think it's about 90,000 over 3 days at Pukekohe, which is an incredible amount of people to squeeze into that place. You'll double that very, very easily, and it will be a fantastic sporting event. So they'll be pushing very hard to make that happen, and I think that will just be absolutely fantastic. I don't think anyone here will disagree with that.
Should we add events to the series to make sure that we go to circuits as well?
There's enough races now, Billy. I mean, the cost of doing the business is horrifying, and I think what we don't want to do is compromise the quality of the racing by having some more races, and then you have reliability problems. I mean, if you look at these cars, not many cars have mechanical problems these days. The cars that are taken out of the races are generally by crashing, but the cars are very strong, they're well built, but you're starting to throw more races in, you need more workers, and these guys are specialised guys. You can't just put an ad in the paper and find someone that can build you one of these cars, and I think we just need to be careful. We need to create the opportunities, but only if it can be monitored sensibly and built around a decent plan, rather than just saying, well, let's have another race, and everyone claps their hands and it falls apart.
I'm glad you said that, Gary, because Roland, on that subject, a lot of people would well ask if a government or a council or indeed a country, in the case of Dubai, which we'll talk about in a moment, decides to put up all the funds for an event, they would be likely to ask, well, why not have an extra round? What's it costing? But what Gary's talking about is the actual cost of putting a car on the track and the preparation, I understand.
Don't forget, it costs. We get paid, and this series is one of the only series in the world outside Formula One where there's a decent structure of start money, etc., which is a fantastic situation that's been built here by all these guys in Avesco over the last few years. But that doesn't pay for the whole thing. That pays a very small percentage of it. So we've still got to raise funds to go and do it. And I believe that we have to concentrate on quality, not quantity. We've got to have some really good events, the like of Adelaide, which I already said is fantastic, Bathurst. These are world-class events. And this is a world-class series that needs to concentrate on getting the whole level up to that standard.
On that note, we'll take a break, we have to, and we'll come back and talk a lot more about V8 supercars on V8 Superstars. Welcome back to the wonderful Hyatt Regency Hotel and V8 Superstars, coming to you from Perth for the 2004 season. And just recently, a very, very important document was released by TIGA, the technical governing body of the sport, giving their, well, it's sort of a blueprint, but it's a plan anyway for the future of the sport. It involves methods of cost cutting. It also involves a few other methods of what they hope will be improving the racing. But if it ain't broke, what do you do? We'll ask Roland Dane about this because he very recently was on the advisory board, and I know you've enjoyed your time there already, Roland. What do you think about, firstly, the cost-cutting measures as a team boss?
Well, that's the wrong expression, firstly. It's cost containment. We don't want anyone getting wind of we're going to be cheaper. We've got to contain our costs like any other business. We've got to continually look at the way that we run our business and our individual businesses and collectively. And that's normal good business practice. And we've got to see where there's the possibility that we could be more efficient. And a big part of this is just looking and saying, hey guys, we're all using the same widget here. Why don't we try and see if we can be more efficient about using that widget? Can we make it more efficiently, or can we buy it collectively, or whatever? And that's a big part of what we're doing. It's not rocket science. This is straightforward, good cost management, and for sure, it always costs something to make some change. We've got to try and minimise that cost and try and be efficient about the way we introduce these changes over the next few years.
Was this inspired by Formula One, perhaps? And certainly that's been the argument against some of the Formula One propositions, is that it might cost more to change it.
It's not inspired by Formula One, it's inspired by good business practice. And the fact is that motor racing is one of those things that, if you're not careful, can go up and up and up, and then suddenly dump itself. And we've got to be aware of that. And the Formula One is going through a tough time for that, as lots of other categories of motor racing have in the world.
And you've just explained very eloquently, actually, why some of these boring issues of how much a wheel weighs is actually important to the people who watch the sport. Mark Scaife, as a team owner, relatively recently, what are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think Roland's explained it very well, because change costs money, but at the same time, we know that we'd be derelict if we didn't look at the areas that we spend money in right now, and probably overall, if we could take 20 or 30% out of the costs totally to run our business, then everyone would be in better shape. And it's one of those ones where it's not necessarily about personnel or drivers' fees or any of the things. It's about saving ourselves from ourselves a bit. There's a lot of regulations now that are too open. And for instance, if we went out and we all used the same wheel, currently the wheels cost us around about $1,000 each. If we went and had them cast and we all used the same wheel, they might be a bit heavier, but either a Holden or a Ford could assist with those things. You might get the wheel for $100 each rather than $1,000 each. And it doesn't make any difference to what the fans see in terms of the quality of the racing, but overall it would save us a massive amount of money. And to me, those sorts of things are easy no-brainers that would make a lot of difference to the industry, and that's one of the things we've got to look at.
Now, there are two threads to this. There are other suggestions to make the racing better. We'll get onto those in a moment. But the cost-cutting suggestions, Greg Murphy, is there any reason from a driver's point of view why they would make the racing any better, or is it simply to help sustain the sport?
Oh, listen, I think anything that's going to just cut the costs and make it better for the teams to
contain
Contain the costs. Contain the costs. It's got to be good, because Russell will be able to ask for more money when he gets his negotiation, and I know he's always thinking about that. So.
Good idea, mate.
Good idea. I've put you onto something there, a brainwave. I think you used that term before.
Did we not talk about the salary cap?
Yeah, okay.
No salary cap.
I think it's a good idea.
Struck out.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of areas.
If it's up near Russell's salary, that'd be fine for everyone, I think.
There's a lot of areas where there's money being wasted or excessively being spent. So I think that kind of stuff is certainly good. I don't want to see the cars change too much. I think they're great the way they are, but I'm sure there's ways we can contain the costs.
We'll get onto the car changes in just a moment. That's a bit of a different argument. Gary Rogers, your thoughts? Would you like a salary cap and even a draft system, perhaps?
I'm not so sure about a draft system, but perhaps a salary cap would be a great idea. Look, Bill, I think it's got to be fair for everybody. The drivers, the people that own the teams, the mechanics that work there, they work long and hard. There has to be a system that encompasses the whole cost, and that means your drivers, all your workers. And just on those technical changes, I think there's a lot of changes can be made that won't jeopardise the quality of the racing, because we certainly don't need to do that. If anything, we need to make that better than it is. And I think if we can just sensibly look at mechanical changes that don't affect the quality but certainly reduce the cost, it won't happen in 5 minutes, but if we just keep building cars and spending money the way we are now, it will be very difficult in another 3 or 4 years to keep it up, and certainly we don't need to do that. So I think we're heading in the right direction, but we don't need a massive whirl around and the next thing the whole thing falls off the rails, because let's face it, it's a bloody popular business.
Will it make teams more equal? Is it going to stop the
I don't think that sort of stuff's going to affect us at all. I mean, if you're talking about a clutch, you know, we all have the same clutch. It's not going to affect it at all. And I really think that the things the board have put out, it's very brave for them to put out a document at the start.
We're looking at some of the parts
some
now,
of the things that, you know, there's a potentiometer there. That probably the two things that worry me the most about the proposed changes. All these bits that we're seeing here, they want to have control, but changing the aero around, that concerns me a little bit, I've got to say, and also the data, banning potentiometers and taking all that stuff away from the teams means that on a race weekend you don't have the ability to look at the information that comes out of your car, and I believe, if we're not careful, that's going to drive the teams that have plenty of money into simulation software, and the have-nots, the difference between the have-nots and the haves is going to get wider apart. One thing that we can't do is, you know, so, okay, sometimes we have a bad race meeting, but by and large, it's close. There's usually a second over the first 30 or 32 cars. The racing is great. We don't need to mess with that too much. And cost containment, that's okay, but messing around with what the cars are capable of doing, pulling the aero off them, pulling the ability to tune your car off them, I really worry about that, because that has the potential to change a race.
Well, now you've got us into that second tier argument that I was talking about. Let's go.
Brad, just on that point, you don't want 32 cars within a second of each other if they can't pass each other, because you need the passing to make the race.
True.
Yeah. And I believe that there are ways to do that without jeopardising anything. I mean, I'm a firm believer we should have harder tyres that make the cars harder to drive. So look, the good drivers will still win the races. That's how it is.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
But it will be more exciting, because the cars, you watch an old Appendix J race, the cars, they've got the back hanging out here and there, and the public pay the money, don't want to see it.
But I would be in agreement with you up until the weekend, Gary, because there's actually something that Neil Crompton said after the telecast on the weekend. And he said some of the best racing we have seen over the weekend was at Wanneroo.
Some of the best racing we've seen this year.
This year? Well, yeah, Wanneroo on a new surface, because it had extra grip, because the track was so grippy. But is that telling us something? Is that telling us...
It's a 57-second lap. I mean, the cars
but is that telling us the cars need more
regardless.
grip, not less?
Yeah,
if we give the cars more grip, we get better racing.
Bugs, your boss is Mark Larkham, is a very, very keen supporter of these new rules.
Well, obviously Mark's, you know, right in the middle of the whole thing with these guys on the Tiga board. His ideas on the cost containment is very, you know, very important to our team. Obviously, we don't have the budget of what a lot of the other teams in pit lane do. But I
can't stand it. Don't get so upset.
But Perth has always produced great racing. This circuit's always had great racing, so I don't think that's a good argument for that. I think that hang on, let me finish.
There hasn't been good racing here, Barks, before. No,
there always has been good racing here, because cars run out of tyres and they start moving around and cars pass. Now, when you're overtaking people, the easiest way to overtake is when the guy in front makes a little mistake, the car moves, you can get a run on the guy, you can pass him under brakes. I mean, we all know that. If the cars have got no aero on them, and the tyre might not be as efficient as what Gary's talking about, the cars are going to move around a lot more, which is going to create...
Why was there so much passing on the weekend then?
Because this circuit always creates that. Because you come out of the bowl...
The racing here has been very strung out in single file.
Yeah, but won't you get to a point then, if you do that, you take it all off, that it'll just turn out to be what we have now, because everyone will be the same again?
No, because the cars will be moving around a lot more, and then you'll have a situation where it comes back to more of the drivers.
They don't have that much aero on them.
They don't.
They don't have that much aero on them.
What are you complaining about then?
No, what I'm complaining about is if you pull the aero of both the cars and you don't put them in a wind tunnel and you have no way of adjusting the parity of the car, one particular brand is going to be a lot stronger than the other brand.
Well,
hang on, wait a minute. You two had a go. Now it's my turn. So what we need to do... What we need to do here is you need to be able to get the cars, put them in a wind tunnel, play around with the aero on them so they're the same. And if you take all the aero off them, you have no way of adjusting the car. So how are you going to make them the same?
No, I agree that they have to be the same. But if the front under tray in the car is ineffective to the point where one might have a smaller under tray that makes it exactly the same as the other car, but the aero is minimal. The rear wing doesn't work.
But they hardly have any aero on them now.
Brad, I mean, I've got one of the guys working for me who I consider as probably one of the most skilled touring car aerodynamicists in the world, and his pedigree is second to none. And he tells me that emphatically that we can make these cars 100% even. It's not a problem given the basic shape of the cars. That's not I don't believe that's going to be an issue. If there are other issues for leaving for the aero in place, that's fine. But the argument that the cars can't be equalised afterwards, I don't believe is a valid argument.
I don't agree with you at all, Roland. We started this category in 1993 as this whole evolution come around, and in 1993 the Holden had 150 mil, 6-inch little perimeter thing under the front spoiler, and the Ford had a full under tray in it. The difference was massive.
Yeah, because you allowed it to have an under tray.
The shape of the cars has made a big difference through the period of time that the cars have evolved from way back in VP days through to today, right? So I don't agree with your statement in that two basic standard road cars can be made to be that equal.
That's what he's done.
We've made. We've done it by putting under trays in them. We've made them
equal now.
Exactly right. So two standard cars without them.
But you've put two identical under trays on them.
But you're not saying having under trays at all.
The under trays are the same.
But you're not saying having an under tray.
Yeah, exactly. You've made the cars that you've equalised the cars, but you've used the same under tray.
Yeah, but you've taken the standard bumper off the car and you've made the airflow around the same one on each car.
Absolutely, but you could still have
standard
the
ones
deep
on
front
there.
Splitter. You can still play with that, but you take the under tray off.
You need to put the cars in a wind tunnel. With all due respect to your bloke.
Of course you do. I didn't say you didn't.
Well, just leave them the way they are.
Well, okay.
I've got a real problem with believing. I mean, you're gonna open a whole can of worms when you start doing this stuff, because it's going to take how many years to get them to where they are now?
There's one other element to this, and we'll make an assumption after the break that we can leave some under tray on or leave some sort of wing on to make sure the cars are equal. But then they are both unstable, perhaps, down Conrod Straight. After the break, we'll talk about that, because Stephen Richards' team boss had some strong words to say about that. Wonderful audience here in Perth, and this is a wonderful topic. Stephen Richards' boss, Larry Perkins, well, I don't know if he actually said that drivers would be seriously hurt if the aero was taken off the cars, but that was certainly the meaning of the headline. And I spoke to Larry about this in the pits just before the Barbagallo round, and he said he stood by the principle that it was highly dangerous to take aero off the cars. And even if the cars, let's assume, are still made equal but equally unstable, Larry was worried. Stephen Richards, do you go with your team boss on that one?
Well, I think what we're trying to say here is that the fact that the cars don't have a lot of downforce to start with, basically the way the whole downforce issue has evolved is at 200 and X amount of kilometres an hour, they develop the standard car's weight at that speed. Now that keeps them on the road and keeps them stable. Now to reduce that, a normal standard car develops lift at speed. And I think, a few years ago there was probably a pretty good example at Bathurst when a tyre delaminated on Wayne Gardner's car. I think David Brabham was driving at the time. It turned around at the kink in Conrod Straight and almost lifted off the ground. So there is definitely a good argument for the fact that the cars do need an amount of significant downforce. And what we're talking about, the cars that we have now already don't have a massive amount of downforce.
Should we retain enough downforce just to keep that hand on the top of the car?
That's what we've got it now.
We've got it.
I mean, and the fact of it is, I don't know what the crowd thinks or what the public thinks, but I think the cars look pretty good. They look really, really hard. And
but don't. And you're not going to change the appearance of the car.
The car would remain exactly the same. Well, to look at it visually, you have a rear wing, the same rear wing that exists today. The front under tray would look identical, except it wouldn't have the actual full under tray that we currently have. It might have a quarter or a half or something, whatever the testing proved it to be. But the car to look at would be identical.
Has the issue been raised in the meetings about this possibility of the cars becoming unstable in a situation like Conrod?
Well, Scafey, you raced at Bathurst in the days of Group A, and so Brad had a crack there too. I think you're old enough, Brad. Yeah,
no, I'm not.
the
He was in the
GTRs.
previous category with
The wheels were wooden when Brad was racing there.
with the leather helmets and stuff was when he was running around.
So the GTRs were doing 270 k's an hour down Conrod, and obviously no one died then. Well, you didn't fall off the road. So, in the situation we've got the Chase there now, it's not dangerous going over the hump that used to be there on Conrod.
Well, I mean, the cars certainly were harder to drive in terms of the aero stability, no doubt. I mean, in those days, a GTR would do the same speed. It would basically be geared the same way at a 318 or 320 final drive ratio, basically the same speed as today. And the Chase wasn't flat. I mean, you had to back off before the Chase, and the cars certainly moved around a lot more. And that was for lots of different reasons. It had quite an inch smaller tyre, but it certainly didn't have anywhere near the downforce that the cars have got today. So, I mean, now, my personal opinion of the downforce is that at most places the cars are fine. The only thing that I would say that if ever we are at fast corners, that you can't drive the car this far behind another car, that's the day when we've met the threshold of aero limit. That means that if you can't stay, 5 millimetres behind Russell Ingall coming onto the straight at Phillip Island or coming off the end of the straight at Eastern Creek, then that's when we've actually gone past where we should be, because we want to be able to run, that close together.
Well, that is a downside of putting more aero on it, is that it will affect it more, because when you get up behind another car, I mean, it takes the air away from under the front.
But we're not talking about doing that anyway.
No, and it's all a bit of guesswork. The bottom line is the cars need to be put in a...
Don't I get an opinion here?
No.
What's the deal?
You
want more aero?
All night, so...
Webble?
Okay.
I really think... I mean, it's time we put them in a wind tunnel anyway and found out what's going on. It's ridiculous that we've had cars running around this long and we don't know how aerodynamically efficient either brand is. If you're thinking about taking anything off them, you really need to find out what you've got now and what you're looking to go to, and be really serious about it, because the racing's close, the cars are close. And I understand what Gary's saying about letting them spread out a bit, but we've got to be careful that we do create some passing opportunities. If we do that, we don't just make them run around like they do now, but there's 4 or 5 car lengths between every car, because these people, they're not going to come to watch it, and they're not going to turn on to watch it.
Gary?
Yeah, but no one's going to get out there with a hacksaw and cut the front under tray off and throw the rear wing in the tip. There's going to be a process to develop it so as it does work. But the whole idea of all these changes, there's 2 reasons. One is to try and do something about the costs, and the other is to make sure the racing gets even more exciting than what it is. Now,
can it be?
Well, of course it can be. We can have a lot more passing than we have. But clearly we might get to this aero stage and it may not work. Now, if it doesn't work, we'll stick with what we've got. But what we need to do at this point in time is have a look at every opportunity that is there to be able to help increase the racing, make it better for the fans, better for the TV, and move on. Not every decision will be the right one. They never are. But we must be...
Well, is just a harder tyre a better compromise? Is that
harder tyre? Can I just throw another angle into this? And I'd like to ask you, I know our fans really probably don't care that we might go 2 seconds a lap slower. It wouldn't be an issue. But do you think that can damage the credibility of what we currently have if we've got support categories at our races going faster than us? Is that another?
At every Formula Holden's always been faster.
But Formula Holden's are racing cars. We're talking about touring cars.
Yeah.
Well, we have the premier category in the country, and we should be seen to be at that level. Now, if we start...
What category are you going to have that's going to go faster?
Carrera Cup race at our lap times, nearly.
Sports sedans are quicker than us now.
I mean, people want to come and see our cars because they're a spectacle. They go fast, they make loud noise, and it's great racing.
Do you really think it's that easy to just make the racing better?
No,
I mean, by making a couple of changes, to a couple of things. I mean, you cannot be sure that by making a harder tyre and putting on the car is going to increase the rate, make the racing better. You can't tell me that.
Personally, I'm not convinced about the harder tyre, but it's a debate. But to me, I've used in other series used harder tyres and softer tyres, used Dunlop, used Michelin. And I have to say that some of the evidence is actually that you can create better racing on a softer tyre because you can have more degradation. But that can vary enormously from circuit to circuit, as we saw at the weekend. So you've got to be very careful. I mean, I've never seen anything like that race where you had so little drop-off and you had people setting fastest laps on lap 39 and etc. I mean, that was quite unique, if you like. So we've got to be very careful which way we go with a tyre. And actually what we've got is probably not a bad compromise if it's consistent with where we are with whether it's harder or softer.
Well, that's the end of that one, isn't it? That was a good compromise.
No, it won't be the end of
I bet it's not the end.
It won't be the end of that. No, it's the start. It's the end of that on the panel, or is it, Brad?
Well, I think, what touring car category in the world has better racing than what we have at the moment? Which one is it? Is there one?
There's not one.
There's not.
I mean, NASCAR. And the thing is,
NASCAR don't race.
Not touring cars.
Have a look at a road race, a NASCAR road race, and see how much passing goes on. Not nearly as much as in our series.
The other thing is, we've become pretty spoilt with what we've got, and now we want to keep improving these things. But I mean, as you say, find a better one in the world that's better than what we have.
Real touring cars. I mean, I know NASCAR's fantastic racing.
So now we're starting to look
cars?
for better, but you're not going to find any better racing anywhere. So we're getting a bit greedy, I reckon.
A yay or nay from the audience, quickly. Are we the best?
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, that was going to be hard. Ask if there's anyone that likes any other race.
No, I'm not going to ask. Not going to ask what they think of us. We'll take a break on V8 Superstars, and we'll come back with more after this. Before we push on tonight, a big thank you to the supporters here. I'm not just talking about supporters of V8 Supercar Racing, but you're also supporters of the Variety Club of Australia. Thank you very much. It's been a very big contribution tonight. And as a reward for that wonderful support, what are we doing for you? We're putting Mark Aston and Greg Rust in amongst you. I better apologise for that right now. Rusty, what have you got?
Well, Cam's with us, and he's concerned about all the investment going on with overseas races. You think perhaps some investment should be made here?
Yeah, I believe that Dubai and China, we shouldn't go there. They should come to us. I mean, Daytona doesn't leave America. Why should the Aussies, or with Murph in it now, the Anzac V8s, leave Australia? Let's be here, bring them back to us. That's it.
Gary. Okay, I'd like to answer that. The first point is it isn't costing, and it's being very financially beneficial for the teams, and that will help the game all the way through, because as we've been talking about it all night, the money is scarce, sponsorship is hard to get, and those two races in particular are being very well funded. So, but I would also like to point out that we will not be jeopardising the Australian circuits, and everyone's got this bee in their bonnet about it. I mean, it just won't happen, but we must improve our business and we must grow our business. So you're just going to have to trust the people that are trying to do that.
Mark Aston.
Thank you, Billy. One thing I love about this sport is that there are so many passionate supporters, none more passionate than this young lady. How are you doing?
Good.
You having a good night?
I am, yes.
Now, what's your name?
Liz.
And where are you from?
Table 11.
No, where are you from in Western Australia?
Huntingdale.
Huntingdale. Now, there's a specific reason why you're such a passionate supporter. Shall we do it?
Okay.
Okay, take off your jacket. Turn around. Now, what's this one?
Peter Brock.
And this one?
Mark Scave.
Peter Brock and Mark Scave. And did they actually do that, or did you get someone else to do it?
Mark did, yes. I got him to send me his autograph.
Okay, turn around. Turn around. And what did Mark think of that?
He loved it.
It's a great country, isn't it? Well done, Liz. It's a great country, Murph. There's lots. There's New Zealand girls will have that over there, Greg Murphy, wouldn't there?
Oh, everywhere,
But
mate.
no one can read that one of yours, that squiggly Greg Murphy thing.
It's a bit of a mess.
I'll tell you what.
Where's Todd Kelly's signature?
God rest his soul. God rest his soul. I've seen. Actually, I was thinking of my old mate Baz. I've seen Baz sign some autographs in some wonderful parts of the world. Rusty?
Well done, Liz.
Billy, I'm with Scott, and if he's got a tattoo, I don't want to know about it, but for now, you want to draw a parallel with NASCAR, and you're worried about the future, the calendar, and where it's going, and what impact it might have if we draw that NASCAR example.
Yeah, well, can the Americans, they run 30 times a year. Can we maybe add another 5 and cut the testing and just go racing? Don't worry about the testing and the budgets, just we'll go racing more often. Bring 5 weeks a year, we'll go racing Bunbury.
Gary Rogers likes NASCAR. Maybe he's got a view on that.
I love it. I think NASCAR racing is really a great spectacle, and the people get behind it. I'm not so sure about your comments about just forget the budgets. I wish I could. They're an absolute heartache, but you just can't forget them, or none of us would be here tonight. And look, truly, I think Avesco and Tiga have done a fantastic job to move this along. And it's, the constant criticism, I can understand people's emotions, but, as Roland said before, motor racing is a business today. It needs a proper plan, or it will not work, and it will not survive. And I do believe that there are some really good things happening, and I believe there's a competent group of people doing their best to move it forward. And as I said before, there will be some setbacks, but I think in general, you'll all be very happy for the next 50 years.
Murph, as a driver, would you rather just race and not test at all?
Russell will still be driving in 50 years, Murph. Russell will still be going around. Is that grey I'll be by then?
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
I'll still be kicking your backside.
Yeah. I want to retire.
We need to set up a boxing ring. I reckon we could make a lot of money. A lot of money.
Jelly wrestling. Let's get the two of them in a ring in Jello.
Yeah, we don't want to hear about
Go easy.
You're a sick man.
You're got some weird fetish, Brad.
Isn't he a weird bloke?
I think
you'd like to see that, wouldn't you?
Billy, we're getting serious.
Hey, let's
direct from the Mardi Gras.
We'll do one of Billy's pop quiz. Who'd like to see Russell and Mark in Speedo's jelly wrestling?
And who wouldn't?
See you on the next show.
Not too many.
I've heard those stories, Brad, but I didn't believe them up till now.
Hey, not too many of our staunch male supporters there voted on the jelly wrestling side tonight.
But I tell you what, Mark Aston loves his jelly wrestling. Mark Aston, what have you got?
I do love my jelly wrestling, Billy. This is Maxine, and Maxine is Russell Ingall's #1 fan in Western Australia. Maxine, you've got a wonderful story to tell us about something that Russell did a couple of years ago to you, or not to you. You know what I mean, Maxine.
Family show. He does look after the spectators.
To us, and he had been so good to us that I decided that I would invite him out for dinner. And he was so good that he turned around and he said, "No, I'm taking you out." And he took my whole family, including all my grandchildren.
Who paid?
And I just...
Maxine, he wouldn't have paid.
He
would not have paid,
for everything.
Maxine.
He was just brilliant. And Richo also came with us, and it was just a fantastic
It was a
night. I'll never
Castrol
forget
gig.
it.
He would have had Castrol paying those. Maxine.
Would you like to thank him now publicly?
Yes, Rush, you're just brilliant, and I hope you win every other round.
Oh, thanks, Maxine. What a darling. See? Lovely Western Australia people, eh? How good's that? Very. And I actually did pay for dinner, by the way.
You did not. You never paid for anything in your life. You got short arms and long pockets. And you know.
He got the restaurant to sponsor. The restaurant's just here. Look.
Actually, I think it was Hog's Breath Cafe. All right, down at Hog's Breath Cafe at Joondalup.
Greg. Let's go to Greg Rust.
All right, Billy, we're with Mark. Mark's from Perth. You're wanting to know about just the international destinations that we're going to and perhaps what other things are on the cards.
Yeah, well, we've heard about Dubai, and we've heard about China, and we've heard about, obviously, New Zealand. Where else would the drivers like to go?
Open question to the panel. Where would you like to go, lads?
United States of America.
God damn.
How berserk would they go if we took our show over to America?
They wouldn't know what hit them.
What, up against NASCAR, IRL, Champ Cars, and where would they go for
just
you?
Just one race. You know, go to Laguna Seca or something like that.
Yeah,
It'd be
the corkscrew.
Unbelievable.
The corkscrew with no wings. That'd be fantastic, seeing you come down there.
No, we never said we didn't want to leave home. We never said we
just a
wanted them to leave
one-off
home.
one for the Americans, just to show them how it's done. Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, all right.
You want to build a series of one-off races.
Yeah, but be inventive, Gary. Be a bit out there. Stop thinking your back pocket.
Money's not that important, is it?
No, this is Russell.
Teammates, always thinking of themselves.
Don't worry about the money.
Let's get back onto the salary cap. You reckon 35 grand? That's about the right figure, is it?
That's what you paid me.
That's correct.
Oh, no, let's not go
You
back.
turned out all right, didn't you? Huh? You turned out all right.
Let's not go there.
No, let's not go back to the Audi days. Please, we'll take a break on V8 Superstars and come back with more for you. Here from the Hyatt Regency in Perth.
In 10 News on Monday, the new tax target.
We've rounded the final corner, heading down towards the checkered flag here on V8 Superstars. We're going to look ahead to the Queensland 3. What are you laughing about? Oh, right, it's the best I can do.
Great intro, Billy.
All right, I couldn't do any better. The Queensland 300 is up next. Let's talk about that to a new Queenslander, Jason Bargwanna.
Oh, half a Queenslander. I still live in Melbourne, so... no, I think it'd be a great event. I mean, it's always, it's probably the most boring racetrack that we do race on, but...
oh, that'll go down
one's
well.
exciting, one's boring, okay?
I thought we agreed we're going to talk this up.
Yeah. But from a race point of view, I think it's always good. I mean, it's an intense race from a driver because it is a circuit that is obviously... there's not much to it in terms of the driving input. From a technical input, it's very hard to get the car right, but... it's a long race, and you've just got to, make sure you don't make mistakes, get the pit stops right, because a small mistake at this event, you can lose 3 or 4 spots real easy. So, I think it'd be a great event.
Big change in the complexion of the championship. We've had all these 100k races, and now we get back to the 300ks. And there's always action in the race, Scafey, even though the nickname of this track is a little unflattering.
Well, Russell Ingall was calling it the Paperclip 300 in the segment before, and I didn't really agree with him, obviously.
No way. I love Queensland. Look at that. Yes.
Oh.
Get used to it, baby. Get used to it.
Did you ever win? Oh, did you ever win there?
Get used to that.
Because we all stopped, didn't we?
Get used to that vision.
Marcus got to stop go, and my car stopped, didn't it?
It's really good these two are talking again.
That's great. That is good.
Bloody good.
That is good.
Bloody good.
It's good to see.
He spoke first.
No. Oh, yeah.
Isn't that the first circuit we go to this year that's a test circuit as well for teams?
What?
Is that the first circuit we go to this year that's actually a test circuit for teams?
Bugs, you're making it way too serious. We're having a bit of fun there.
Sorry.
Gee, Bugs, I never thought
I was
about
actually trying to help us out here, Russ.
Bugs, don't think about the racing. Just let's have a bit of a gag. Okay, what's next?
Absolutely right. Are you guys looking forward to the 300ks after all the fun we've had over 100?
Are you, Billy?
I am, actually. Bit of a change. Yes, I enjoy it.
That's good.
New topic.
Well, here you're racing for 192 points all in one bag.
How many laps would that be, 280 Ks?
Why do they call it the 300k race if it's only 280 Ks?
I don't know, because the bloke that designed it can't count. It's 280 Ks.
The Queensland 280 just doesn't sound...
It's not, doesn't have the same ring to it.
No.
Never let a fact stand the way it's possibly going to happen. Yeah. Someone save me.
Richo, you're now...
Now.
You're now looking at 6 points for a positional change. Is that going to change your view of risk management?
It is. I mean, again, we've got another format come up in this race, and it's even more critical. I mean, on the weekend we were able to recover from a disastrous first race to come back through and score some decent points. Well, sorry guys, that's all over. I mean, the 300k or the 280k race, once you're out, you drop 192 points, and if you drop 192 points to the leader of the championship, that's it. It's all over.
You only drop 192 if you win, mate.
Well, no. But what I'm saying, if the championship leader or the guys who you're racing for the championship, if you drop that amount of points to them, it's all over.
Yeah, what you're saying is you can have a DNF in a sprint race format, but you can't have one in a long distance race.
Well, you know, Richo had a great recovery on the weekend and to finish second.
Well, you saw how hard he fought
races.
for 2 points in that first race. You imagine what he's going to do for 6.
He's going to end up on his roof. Hang on. I can smell another points argument coming on here. I'm not sure we're ready for that. How important is it for you, Roland Dane?
Well, it's our sponsor's home event up there, so we've got to try and do a little bit better than we've done so far. We seem to be quite good at pulling a bad situation out of a good situation at the moment. Every weekend we qualify well, and then we screw up in the races. So we've got to try and do a better job in Queensland on our home circuit. Yeah.
Is there any directive from you team managers to the drivers to be a little more cautious because of what Richo was talking about, or does that never change?
It wouldn't matter what the team manager said, the driver won't listen anyway.
La 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 la, is that what he said?
Yeah.
You're breaking up.
Yeah. That'll just go on the list of stupid questions. We might file that one. Our look ahead to the Queensland 300 is here right now, round 6, and it's the 4th of July. Who will be celebrating with fireworks? 2:30 to 5, and that's of course something you can check in your local guides, and it will follow RPM. Another busy weekend for us. Our thanks to this wonderful panel: Roland Dane, Stephen Richards, Bradley Jones, Mark Scape, Russell Engel, Greg Murphy, Jason Barguada and Gary Rogers, who will all be appearing at a jelly wrestling contest near you. So keep your eyes open on all the banners. Our thanks to you, a wonderful audience. You've been fantastic tonight. Give yourselves a round of applause. Our thanks to the Hyatt Regency Hotel. I think you'll all agree this has been a wonderful venue tonight. Fantastic. It's in a great spot and it's a great room. And our thanks to the Variety Club of Australia too for their support, and hopefully we've supported you as well. Thanks to you at home. Also, goodbye to Mark Aston and Greg Rust. I think they're already in the bar. We'll catch you next time on V8 Superstars. Bye for now.